Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for spending your time here today. It's a beautiful weather outside. So, okay, maybe without further ado, I'll just quickly introduce today's session. So, first of all, welcome to Evolutionary Tales, Stories of Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, a panel session that's done in collaboration with Malay Heritage Centre as part of Pesta Raya, Malay Festival of Arts. We are very honored to have with us today two wonderful speakers. The first, Dr. Azza Ibrahim, a senior lecturer at the Department of Malay Studies, National University of Singapore, who teaches Malay Indonesian literature and ideologies of development. And also with us today is Ridwan Saidi, a novelist, playwright, and filmmaker. And I would like to point out also that he is the playwright for the Esplanade Commission theatre production, which is as part of Pesta Raya, together with Theatre Eka Mantra, titled Bawang Putih, Bawang Merah, which will only have two more runs, one tonight and another matinee tomorrow. For those of you who haven't had a chance to watch, I hope you have gotten tickets to watch the last two shows, because the last I checked, they are sold out. Okay, so perhaps I will quickly pass the time to Dr. Azza to begin with his presentation.
Thank you, Shafika. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to share some of my readings on this topic. Actually, I come here to listen more to Saudara Ridwan because a talent like him is very expensive in that sense. Expensive not just because of the cost, it's actually the time. Yeah, a busy person in the artistic scene in Malaysia and the region too. And we should be thankful to him, yeah, spending time here. And more so, I think, yesterday's Bawang Putih, Bawang Merah, yeah. Thank you for your touch, it gives a refreshing. I saw the whole student, the entire auditorium was like, wow, yeah, it's a big wow, yeah. So I'm glad to share that. Okay, so very quickly, this is what I'm given 20 minutes. Normally, topics like this takes 3 hours lecture, yeah? It is 3-hour lecture, but I won't spend time 3 hours lecture. It's 20 minutes suffice. And I crafted it as such that, it relates to the theme that we are going to maybe explore, yeah, tales and cultural resilience. Yeah? So generally, my task here to give an overall big picture of what this tales is all about. Primarily, I think we can look in terms of either by stages or by circle of genre, right? And the kind of style of thinking, yeah, that permeates in these tales, yeah. Of course, it may not necessarily be chronological. It could be, at times it overlaps, yeah. So we have the mythical type, we have the ideological type, and then we have the intellectual type, yeah. So some tales reflect very much of this, of the mythical era, or the mythical domain, or the mythical past. Yeah? But there are also, in remote past, there are things which is not necessarily mythical, but also ideological. For example, say how tales been used by the ruling class to project a certain ideology. Right? So the tale can stay as mythical, but the tale can also become an ideological apparatus. But at the same time, you also have thinkers and like-minded people who are, we call progressive, who reinterpret these tales in that sense, right? Or narrative for that matter. So that could be one where there is an reinterpretation. Yeah, we call it, for lack of a better term, the intellectual type, right? Of course, these are ideal types. Yeah, in the actual world, it overlaps. Yeah, some, in terms of proportion, it has more mythical than ideological, or vice versa, for that matter. So this is just a very basic thing. When we talk about tales, maybe some major characteristic, yeah, should suffice for us to delineate what it made up of. Maybe first, enjoining the good for warning the aberrant. This is part and parcel of tales imparting a cultural ideal. Yeah? Sociologically speaking, it is called sometimes the paradigmatic schema. Yeah. So sometimes it could be religion, sometimes it could be culture. Yeah. Sometimes it could be the historical part, giving us that paradigmatic structure, we call it. The other one, tales could be in terms of its encapsulation, overt didacticism, or something like quite light, kind of like a reflective engagement. In tales, there are many metaphors, symbolism that are used to impart those ideas and messages and values. And tales are generally universally reflect the human ideals, yeah, in a way expressed in particular idioms, but overall it has that big canopy called universal. So for example, we have filial piety, for example, right? It is expressed in Chinese civilization this way, in Malay culture this way, in Indian civilization that way, yeah? So it is universal, but in terms of its cultural manifestation differs. The other one is that tales could be just ordinary, quotidian, like day to day, that what we experience, we laugh at, yeah, we cry, and so on, yeah. So there was no precise agenda to this. In a way, we can call it entertainment, like entertainment, yeah. And also one point, and maybe I don't know whether you agree with me, this is my last point, because after reading, I had a few session on Vandana Shiva, yeah, a famous Indian ecologist. So among others, she says that woman has been the keeper of seeds, yeah, in the agricultural tradition. But I was thinking, yes, women are also a keeper of these many narratives, yeah. And it's quite interesting, at the oral level, women are the one who tell story, but at ideological level in courts, men produce ideological tales. So you see a different power. One power is to nurture our children, the other power is to control the way we see the world, right? So this is my link to this. All right. So in terms of its genre, the typologies, it could be very educative, moral, ethical. It has that elements of to be imaginative and emancipative. Like for example, this image of Hang Tuah is a very famous, you want to call it legend, tales, doesn't matter, but it has possibly from the oral tradition to textual, and then it become back to oral, and then to films, see? And now back to textual, as in we study in class. So in terms of its survival, right, of these tales, it has went through a lot of phases in terms of not just interpretation, but the form, yeah, the genre we call it. All right, so that's where the point on medium, whether it's oral, passed down from generation to generation, could be written when the court started, or maybe the scribe culture comes in. Today we have visual, tales being told, being reimagined in visual. Sometimes we don't know how this thing looks like. So the visual tells add certain interpretation to that. Then today we have digital. I think with AI, you record everything, the AI can imagine what the tales will be and the images, right? So it will be interesting to see how the evolution of tales. Yeah? Now, there is a need, if we go along in higher studies, tales are, and any narrative for that matter, needs to be not just appreciated, but critically to be read. Yeah? One, the extent of which the dominant values contained in these narratives or tales. This is a basic for any student of literature. And then, of course, when we look at tales, we look at what are some things that are present, but what are absent, for example. The normal one that we noted absent is basically, for example, it's always on woman needs to be virtuous, wife needs to be obedient and loyal, but it's silent about men. This is where all the feminists will jump. Oh, you see? Yes, even our past tales, have all this, gender ideology, right? The other one is possibility that there are some tales in itself projecting an alternative or dissenting ideas, right? Along the way, I think humans are responding creatively, and this is where I think tales become more exciting. And I will share you in a bit what I've read about the tales of Singapore, for instance. And then there is, from tales, you can tell us about insights into the conception of community and humanity. Your choice of hero, the choice of hero in the tales, in itself reflect the choice of humanity. If your hero is, say, forgive me, if your hero is corrupt, then it tells something, or an aggressor. It tells something about the sort of humanity that we have in mind. Yeah? And as part of cultural readings of symbols and metaphors, there is a need for us to see the strengths and the weaknesses of our cultural production or our culture produced. Yeah? So I think that's where, from time to time, we need to relook. So last night, saudara, your version of bawang putih, bawang merah, that is another form of contemporary reinterpretation. Yeah, saudara, you may not be the other one, but there are some people were also responding again after his production, and this is where I think tales survive. That what we call the cultural resilience of tale itself. Yeah, apart from tales giving us the idea of cultural resilience. Yeah? So in the global era, why these tales are important? Yeah, coming back, reading tales are also reading your own cultural tradition in a way, knowing thyself. Two, global tales are actually everywhere in our landscape. Our kids know Korean tales better than our Nusantara Southeast Asian tales, right? Because I think the Koreans are able to produce more creatively, and more appealing. Yeah. At one time, I thought that the Scandinavian tales, are very powerful tales, but they kind of like silent a bit until we have that movie. What do they call it? The British movie.
Which one?
Which one? I don't,
That's a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah. Anyway, it's all based on tales. Yeah, tales and legends. Yeah. So if you read the tales and legends of those production from the British writers, the tales are narrated as such that it looks like magical, but it is still rational. Compared to, if I may say very critically here, sometimes in our case, it becomes magical, but it's anti-science. That's a difference, right? So here we see, the differences, and we will see how the global players are doing their tales. The other one is the need to move to showcase tales from our own backyard, how much we have done. And I think the organizer, Esplanade, done a good job in that sense, right? Of commission saudara and you reenact the tales. Yeah? And not just appreciating our own, but how do we maintain the affectionate tune in times of modernist tales are getting in common. What is it all about? I think sometimes we are so enthusiastic about getting tales to be taught, to be articulated in a very modernistic sense, but the affectionate part to it, we lose it. The motherly touch, right? It's no need to be so rational in that sense. And I'm not thinking about the anti-science. I'm talking about a more affection, with the songs, with the certain melody, with certain rhythms. Our tales become textbook type. So it lost that nurturing tone. So this is the concern. And this is basically the concern, again, I'm not going to read this, is what Rabindranath Tagore, very early in 1902, noted, the moment you put all these tales into print, you will lose that affectionate tune to it, or tone to it. So how do we then go about? Our public library running short story, stories about how do we share to kids and so on. But I think we can do more. We have experts around, but normally we don't gather their inputs. So we allow, and sorry to say this, we allow curriculum planner who has no training to that. Because tales is not just another literary text, right? It comes with a cultural touch to this. We need that expertise rather than simply putting them and then we publish because there are grants around. All right. All right. So when we say about tales are evolving, and this is what I think is very interesting, how different sectors in society are looking at tales from a different standpoint. Let's look at Singapura di Toda. Singapore being attacked by the swordfish. Yeah. And then from that, in Sejarah Melayu, that is one of the episode in the era of pre-Islamic Singapore. Yeah. So what happened was part of the tales. One of the boy, yeah, who suggested to the king, rather than we have a human phalanx on the beaches of Singapore, let's cut the banana stem and put it as a barricade, yeah, to ward off the attack of the swordfish. That is in the text. This is a court text, basically. A court text that tells about the story of Singapura. But what would be interesting, we have an oral tradition emerging from Pulau Belakang Mati, Sentosa, i.e., a story which is similar, but with the name is not Hang Nadim. In Sejarah Melayu, the boy is not named. It is called Budak. So Budak means it can be a boy or a girl. We don't know, right? But the film version, the one that you see, to my right, Singapura di Toda, Shaw Production, the boy is called Nadim, right? Because it's a film production, the boy needs to be named. So the boy is called Nadim. Original text, no name. But the oral version in Singapore, the boy is named Mat Jambul. And Mat Jambul has a Chinese friend. And that Chinese friend is called Akau. So before that boy was thrown into the, I think this area lah. yeah, being thrown, actually it's just outside a bit of the Teluk Belanga area because the choppy sea, yeah. So that boy was asked, that Mat Jambul was asked, what do you want to eat before we throw you into the sea? The boy said, I want kuih koci. So they said, okay, go and get him kuih koci. You know who's going to get him the kuih koci? That Chinese friend, that boy, Akau. So Akau was told, hey, this Mat Jambul wants kuih koci. Akau ran and then passed the kuih koci. But then the boy was already thrown. Being a best friend, Akau also jumped into the sea. 2 boys perished. And this is oral history, right? This is recorded in the 60s by A. Samad Ahmad, who also did a Malay Sejarah Melayu version, the court version, and he recorded the oral version. Can you imagine? This is before Singapore. This is before Majulah Singapura. Why? Because the Malays have been living with the Chinese and the Chinese have been living with the Malays. This is part and parcel of common tales. Yeah? So if you look at, yes, the cruelty of a Maharaja of Singapore, 2 boys perish. 1 Chinese and 1 Malay boy. Imagine that one is recreated in National Day Parade. Wow, right? Very Singapura, right? So you can imagine how powerful it is. But these things are not being told. Because at one time, we are not interested with Singapura tales. Until, bicentennial maybe. Then we start, We have, Munshi Abdullah, Sejarah Melayu, our history go back 700 years before, right? So we have lots of stories actually, right? The Kusu Island, many more, yeah? All right, this I will stop here, and then very quickly, the themes you can see: filial piety, hard work, perseverance, loyalty and friendship, virtue of cooperation, the triumph of reason, justice matters. However, the tales also tell you these are things that you're supposed to avoid. Disloyalty and disobedience, indolence and pessimism, egoism and selfishness, foolishness, acts or thinking, tyranny or unjust. Most of these tales tell you they are not intellectually sophisticated, but they tell you simple things, right? Don't be jahat. Jahat means naughty, not naughty, bad lah. Don't be a bad person, basically, right? So how then we need to create new tales in the sense that we use the old corpus, we reenact, and we go out and find more. things in Malaysia, Indonesia, they have a big hinterland. They are now documenting it. But Singapore, I think we have exhaust, all done. But we have Southern Islander. They have many lot of story to tell. Right? We need to check on those. Right? So there are, of course, today with the rise of far right, far left, whatever it is, especially far right, the tales are being told in a very myopic way, and then can be very dangerous, right? Especially when ethno card being played, and I think it's going to be very disturbing. We have a hard time teaching literature in class, all these things, rightist things coming out. Yeah? Educative values of tales, I think I need not emphasize on this. I think let Saudara Ridwan and our moderator to share. And then finally, I think this is what that we have lost that enchantment. Bruno Bettelheim did very well on the study of children's literature, and of course, it's to be specific fairy tales. Let's hope one day we can have like a short workshop reading on this world classic and bring children storytellers, breeding researchers. I think we need to spend a little bit more time, yeah, on how to make not just tales more exciting, more educative, but part of our cultural resilience to keep on engaging. Yeah? And this is my last point about a story of Pak Pandey. This is how a Malay writer in Singapore by the name of Muhammad Arif Ahmad, Mas, we call him. So he wrote this Pak Pandey Modern, the modern Pak Pandey. And this is in the 50s, 60s. Yeah? So we have the Pak Pandey story in oral version, but being a teacher, a cikgu, yeah, he has that touch on the new kind of Pak Pandey that needs to be projected. Imagine this one we give to Ridwan. Yeah, next session, another play. Yeah, okay. So lastly, I shall quote from Mas. Dia mempunyai kelebihan yang jika diketengahkan, dia boleh hidup, dan jika diketepikan, dia tidak pula mati. So tales are of this type that Mas wants. Yeah, that it has that strength. If, for example, if you put it up front or put it at the center, it can always nurturing and flourishing. But at the same time, even if you put it aside, it won't die because it has that cultural resilience. On that note, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azhar. Maybe we shall pass the time now to Ridwan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Terima kasih Dr. Azhar. Yeah. Okay, bahasa Inggeris. Okay. So next slide. Okay. So bawang putih, bawang merah. So the slides is I wrote it in English, but maybe if I don't have the words in English, I will just speak in Malay. Boleh tolong tolong translate. Okay. Yeah. Bawang putih and bawang merah, and its variation. So when I started doing this project as a playwright, first because as a playwright you can do original works and then you can like this to respond to some old tales. So if I am responding to old tales, the first thing I want to do is to find the oldest surviving source lah. Yeah, that's my initial reaction lah. So
Yeah.
So after from my findings, these tales are the two main strong narrative lah. The first one is the magical fish one, which is if you watch the plays, this is the version lah. The more popular one, a la Cinderella, where the protagonist is a stepchild being abused by the mother and step sibling, and then the mother will be fried. This is what makes it special lah, because in Cinderella the mother won't become a fish or being fried. I think the mother memang dah tak ada. Involves a prince. So the magic pumpkin punya version dia shorter because I think the oral version akin to Aesop's fable where dia lebih focus on moral lessons lah, emphasizing not to be greedy lah. So it's about ada labu, this pumpkin, the small one ada jewellery, the good bawang will macam humble, they break it and then ada jewellery, and then the other bawang yang greedy, they take the big one, inside that ada snakes, ada scorpion, something like that lah. So no prince. So and then because this story bawang putih bawang merah dia ada dekat Singapore, dekat Malaysia, dekat Indonesia, and it was in fact before semua negara ni ada lah. So most of the time Indonesian version, the bawang putih is the protagonist, while Malaysian / Singapore most of the time it's bawang merah. So
Strange, right?
so I'm not sure why, tapi yalah, kita believe dia oral and popular in Riau and Tanah Melayu and their surroundings.
Maybe they like different places prefer different types of shallots.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the protagonist name is mentioned last. Ini my findings lah. Kalau bawang, the last name is the protagonist for that tales lah. Kalau for example bawang putih bawang merah, the bawang merah is the protagonist. So kalau bawang merah protagonist, it means Malaysia Singapore. So kalau bawang merah bawang putih is the protagonist. So usually it's the Indonesian tales.
Oh, I see.
So this is yeah. So this one I can share just slowly what I can find lah.
Yeah.
This one it's a macam film by in Indonesia 1953, but dia dah lost. So only poster je ada. So cerita kuno, so bawang merah bawang putih. So there's a synopsis. So more or less dia sama. There's this, the mother akan jadi fried, akan jadi ikan, akan become a fish and then deep fried, lepas tu jadi buaya kan.
Yeah. So in this version, the magical fish, so what happens to the mother is that she will become a fish, and then she will then be fried and eaten by her daughter, and then the bones will be buried somewhere, and then a spring will sprout from where the place where she was buried. Yeah.
So this one is the first interpretation lah into, I think, apa, layar lebar, into films. So and then after 1953, 1954 dia buat dia punya apa, sambungan.
So in 1954 there was a sequel.
But this one dia dah ada macam creative license to macam just develop dia punya,
to develop the plot further. So it further deviates from the original story.
So it's titled Bawang Merah Tersiksa.
Bawang merah tortured.
Because
more.
Because in Indonesia the bawang merah is the bad one.
Okay.
So the next one, this one the synopsis lah. Okay. If you want to read, tapi tak jelas. and then this one is the popular and last surviving one lah. The categories film, bawang putih, bawang merah. So the merah is the good one. The left one, yeah. Latifah Omar. Sebuah film S. Romano. And then I found out that this film is based on a novel by Saleh Ghani. So I tried to find the novel in Malaysia, tak ada, and then I asked Kai to find in Singapore punya National Library pun tak ada. So maybe lah considered lost juga the novel, the written text. So for me, this film is the oldest surviving thing yang I can refer and play around and respond to lah. Yeah. But somehow I just try to find out apa yang something else lah yang menarik. So this film is 1959. So and then in Indonesia ada bawang putih je. Yeah. So this one I haven't found the film. Tapi the actor is Broy Marantika.
Okay. So this one bad or?
This one I did tak jumpa film je.
Oh yeah.
He hasn't found a film yet.
Okay.
Tu ada gambar. If you notice, kalau kena, usually in Malay culture, kalau dia kena bully, dia kena rambut kena hair pulled.
So like in Malay films, for some reason, when the protagonist is being bullied, her hair is always pulled.
So in my play, I try to somehow, because when I wrote something, I try to avoid cliche. So when that kind of abuse is already too much, I try to avoid that thing lah. Yeah. So the synopsis, okay, and then this one just 1994, a book lah, Bawang Putih Bawang Merah. I just share this book because dia ada illustrated, ada illustration, and then if you see illustration, the good bawang is basically macam Latifah Omar. So meaning that the writer is being influenced by the older version lah. Yeah. So for me, to find the oldest version is important lah, just because usually yang after that dia akan inspired by macam tu lah, lebih kurang. Yeah. And then this is for the first time animation in Malaysia, ada putih become the protagonist. Usually before this all Malaysia je, tapi Malaysia pula, merah saja. This one era Fazira.
Yeah,
dan MHC, yeah.
So in this film, like for the first time, putih becomes the protagonist in Malaysia. So which is a huge change because usually merah will be the protagonist. Yeah. Starring Era Fazira and M. Nasir.
Okay. So and then this is very popular also in Indonesia, Bawang Merah Bawang Putih, a sinetron for 2 years lah.
Mm.
108 episode.
Yes, I remember coming back from school just to watch this. So yeah.
So it's influential juga lah, yeah, somehow.
Yes.
In a
Yeah.
sinetron soap opera style. So everything is very being stretched lah.
Yeah.
And then this one I think dah masuk macam postmodern punya kind of treatment
Yeah.
where macam Magica dia ambil oral test, dia macam dia berjumpa-jumpakan Pak Pandey, Bawang Putih Bawang Merah, all this. There's no main narrative, there's just the character just appear in one like
Apa cakap dia?
dimension atau dia temukan apa karakter-karakter
It's like
alam cerita-cerita oral ni dalam satu space. Contohnya saya bagi contoh Magica, dan selepas tu Upin Ipin Siamang Tunggal pun dia macam jumpakan atau Bawang Putih Bawang Merah ya.
It's like I guess like the closest parallel would be like the Marvel multiverse. So you have all the characters appearing even though the storylines are no longer retained.
I see.
Usually it's the character appear dia dah melepasi semua dia punya story tu.
Yeah, so usually when these characters appear they have already finished their respective stories. So they just appear as characters. Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. So this one I just share the timeline lah. Yeah, the magical fish one is the one yang how to say banyak orang react to because it has been stretched into a more longer form. But the magic pumpkin, because the original story dia very short je, dia macam jangan tamak. Belum ada orang try to stretch that.
Yeah.
Ataupun hard to stretch because they just
It's a very straightforward
dia macam very short story yang
Yeah.
sangat short. Yeah.
Okay, so the magical fish version or variant has more potential to be expanded, whereas the magical pumpkin, because the story itself is quite short and straightforward, perhaps, in the past there hasn't been much chances for, writers or other artist practitioners to stretch the tale. Yeah.
So I just share a few things when my approach as playwright for Bawang Putih. So yeah, each project memang different. Tadi betul apa? Establish parameters, constraint. Macam I establish what I don't want because it's easier to macam to set up what I don't want instead of what I want, because what I want I don't know yet.
Okay. I see.
So yeah.
How long you take if I'm Later we have.
Ni one two.
Eager to ask him.
Past production. Okay, ni okay lah nombor 3. Working on characters outside in. Working on characters outside in, because usually in normal tales we follow the main protagonist and then sometimes the other supporting macam has no real function. So but for my approach, usually I like to work on the surrounding characters because I want to understand. Sometimes the protagonists react according to what other people do to them. So I try to understand the stepmother. I try to work from outside and then go inside. Yeah. So in this particular Bawang Putih Bawang Merah, actually it's an ensemble mini adventure story for each character. So instead of you follow just one main protagonist, actually all characters dia ada dia punya mini adventure je. Yeah. Especially in term of nak cari realization macam tu lah. Yes.
Okay.
And then propose counterbalance to sometimes I like to play around dengan, for example, the word nenek kebayan in modern context usually people will think about this horror nenek kebayan witch lah, witch. But actually in old hikayat, nenek kebayan is like dia jaga anak raja terbuang macam tu lah. Dia macam fairy godmother like or something. Yeah. So I try to mine atau mixkan atau hybridkan. Sometimes meaning changes throughout the ages. Tapi I try to just hybridkan.
Try to mix around the two.
So mungkin itu sajalah ya.
Okay.
Kita boleh bincang.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ridwan. Perhaps we can move to the concluding segments. So I guess just maybe if Dr. Azza and both Ridwan can comment just generally on I would say like the future of this kind of like oral tales. Like what do you hope to see, you know, flourish in the future? And I guess for Ridwan as well, like if you have another chance to do something similar, like what kind of tales or what kind of direction will you take? Yeah.
Let me start first. We have a lot of oral tales in the sense that urban oral tales, from time to time. But sometimes we missed it, and then we forget it, and then it's no longer in circulation. I remember I grew up in the 70s, so I remember stories along the line of this urban legend called Hantu Kom Kom. Yeah. So this Hantu Kom Kom, from Assalamualaikum actually. That was a period of Islamic revivalism. That time, we in housing estate couldn't make sense when we see women in hijab. We couldn't make sense, because the parents are wearing just a lendang like that, So hijab is a full hijab. So when we see, like say I see you on the street and then and go, kom kom, we are making fun, basically. Not to demonize Islam, nothing. It's just naughty boys and girls, because we couldn't make sense, because we know when we do the prayers, they put on the telekong, but not on the public sphere. So the Hantu Kom Kom becomes a legend, but that story never survived in that sense. Good, because it's prejudicial, right? We don't want that. But it's also part and parcel of how humans are responding to society. And then we have a lot of story on Mina Kilang. Factory girls working in factories. Mina Kilang, Mina Karen, all this. And it becomes their triumph and tribulations. I think it's a working class kind of stories. But again, it doesn't survive because, it has no that intellectual value. But what worries me most, tales within the ambit of literature has not much premium, because people read less in literature. People read less. The appreciation is getting lesser. So tales comes alongside with the development of literature. The moment you don't have that, the creative, say, kind of pronouncement, articulations, metaphors and imagination, tales will not survive. I think the reason why Pak A. Samad Ahmad able to go around and pick up the stories of, it attached to literature. It's a local tales, but attached to literature. What I'm trying to say here again, we need the ecology, right? And as much as I believe that tales have its own cultural resilience, but we cannot take for granted. But I'm more confident because yesterday, upon reflection, I said that never mind, I teach literature anyway. If literature is the last bastion to defend for tales, it may not work, because I see in my class every year smaller and smaller number of literature students. All right, this is what happened in many campuses. But when I saw the play, right, and talented people like you give that touch, I feel, hey, the theatre scenes maybe can become the communicator to these tales. If literary work domain may not work, at least they are in theatre, right? And let's hope Alia and friends in Esplanade, can give in Pesta Raya, at least a good place like this. I think the whole island will come and watch it. You should extend it more, not just 3 nights next time. Okay. Singapura di Langgar Toda. I tell you, the whole island will come. Saudara.
For me, I'm interested in syair jarang tu, the written text lah, because somehow the oral is hard, because when you heard the story, when you retell the story, actually you are already change the story lah. But with written text, especially the old text, because I like poetry, and for me each language in the world dia ada dia punya its own beauty lah, because each language ada dia punya dia punya structure and dia punya how dia function, dia punya complexity. For example, Arabic ke German, dia very macam tu, macam in Malay. And then each language dia ada dia punya how to say, each language bila dia dapat dia punya highest form tu dalam bentuk dunia poetry. And for me in Malay, pantun tu is macam solid, compact. Dia macam
the best expression.
dia macam
best cultural
dia macam
expression.
and then ada atas ada bawah. So syair Jaran Tamasa because dia in syair, but actually syair, but somehow dia macam pantun juga. So I like to play around dengan form pantun lah actually. Actually all my macam writing career atau hidup ni lah, hidup menulis ni, I always rasa I am translating pantunnya feeling into a prose form macam tu. So because I think internal rhythm, especially with language lah, dia you need to know the sifat-sifat language tu. For example, in English there's stress time. In English macam kalau Shakespeare lah, because I learned this when I translated Bangsawan Gemalam-Malam, which is A Midsummer's Night's Dreams. So I realised that in English the stress time dia sometimes you boleh skip, you just stress je, dia boleh skip certain thing, orang masih boleh faham. Macam how you do. Tak tahu betul ke tak ni. How do you do kalau dia sebut sebutir-sebutir. But in Malay it's syllable time. Dia seketul-seketul. So I don't know, I like language, and then with language sampaikan humor, feelings, sadness ke. So dia menarik lah, yeah.
But let's say if given a chance in the future, will there be another tale that you might want to retell?
That one not sure.
Okay. or if do you have a personal favourite?
Personal favourite.
Yeah.
So far I'm interested dengan my last reading lah, the syair Jaran Tamasa. Yeah. Because of the form lah.
Yeah.
And the story also kadang-kadang reflecting macam hikayat hang tuah sikit pun ada. Sometimes these tales dia macam it's a constellation of same stories but different variation, different titles. Macam tadi Mat Jambul dengan Hang Nadim, dia kadang story dia, the story is the same but dia punya variation tu different. Dia how to say, I think sometimes stories dia sama ada macam trees atau constellation, dia macam just branch out. Dia macam itulah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so if there's
Lots
Dr.
to read.
Azhar,
Lots to read.
lots to
draw from the cultural
Yes.
reservoir from the region.
and and I guess I mean, like, I think I can speak for all of us here that we hope that at the end of this panel, all of you will be willing to go out and venture and discover all these different tales, whether or not they are translated into written forms, or these are tales that continue to be narrated orally. And with that, we'll bring the session to a close, unless Dr. Azhar or Ridwan has any last comments to make. Okay, no. All right, thank you so much to the both of them. Okay, and with that, we will draw the session to a close. Thank you so much once again for taking the time this afternoon. Our speakers will still be hanging around here, so if you are too shy to ask questions just now, you can come up to them and ask. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, and one last thing, if I could trouble all of you to scan the QR code and give some feedback before you leave. Thank you.